This is Sports Chat with Nat.
Greetings. This is Sports Chat with Nat. I'm Natalie W. Baker. And if you haven't already, I need you to subscribe on YouTube. But ladies and gentlemen, as I promised you just last week, we have an interview today with Mr. Mike Boyd of the PIT tournament that is held in Portsmouth.
Thank you very much for having me on and for giving me the opportunity to talk about something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, the Portsmouth Invitational Basketball Tournament.
Yes, yes. Now, although I was actually born in Norfolk, I know nothing about that. All I know is Portsmouth. I grew up in Portsmouth in historic Truxton community right there off of Portsmouth Boulevard. And I have been playing basketball myself. Well, I don't play anymore, but I played in elementary school at Portsmouth Catholic. So it's just been basketball, sports all over. And Mike, we're going to talk about the PIT, which is the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament. Now, one of the things that I found out that blew me away, as big as the NBA is, little old Portsmouth, smack dab in the middle of Norfolk and Suffolk and all those other big cities, is one of only two pre-draft NBA camps in the country. Am I correct?
That's correct. And I think now we are the longest running pre-draft camp as well.
Yes. And so now
the NBA, normally all the teams send scouts down. We might miss, I think Portland's missed a couple, but generally it's pretty much everybody from the NBA and from the developmental league. The G League has been sending people down as of late. And European scouts from all over the world come in to watch as well, because pretty much every player that participates in the tournament has the ability to go on to play professionally. Not all of them, and actually probably not even the majority of them, will go and play long in the NBA. But all of them can make a living playing basketball, and a lot of them do go over to Europe and make a very good career out of that.
But in that you're saying that it is European and the G League right here in Georgia, because I'm actually in Atlanta. They have a College Park Skyhawks, I believe is the name of the team. Man, they are on TV every Saturday. They look amazing. So it's just a wonderful opportunity for young men playing basketball to get an opportunity to be seen. But as I look over the list over the years, some of the names that just jump out and blow me away. One of the first ones I see, Rick Barry. He holds a record for, what was that? He holds the record for points in the tournament, Rick Barry. And I'm like, the Barry brothers? And I mean, Derek Fisher, and actually Katina Mobley. He's doing really well in the 3-on-3. With all of those names out there, is there one particular player that has maybe you have a connection to, or a name that sticks out for you, that someone that has come through the tournament?
Well, sure. And actually, you mentioned there's so many. It's just incredible. People that are not really familiar with the tournament, when they see some of the players that have come through there and played, they're amazed. And it's whenever people really haven't even recognized them at that point. The ones that stand out to me, I started coming when I was in high school in 1983.
Okay.
I had just finished playing my first season of junior varsity basketball.
Okay.
I didn't play quite as young as you did, but I got started a little later and loved it. One of my friends and neighbors was the father of one of the girls I went to high school with. He's the first one that took me to the PIT at the old Wilson High School. And I remember standing out there and hearing the oohs and ahs and the cheers, and it was just magical. And getting in there and seeing some of the players I'd seen on TV in the NCAA tournament. That's the year that the NC State Wolfpack won the national championship, and Sidney Lowe came within a couple of days from the national title game and was playing here in Portsmouth. Seeing him, Mark West from Old Dominion University, who I'd watched locally, and several others, from the ACC, and people that you never heard of, but then you hear about later on. And the point I'm getting to on that is some of the ones that really stood out to me. The second year I went, that's when I started going to the entire tournament, all 4 nights.
Okay.
84, and I really probably have not missed many games overall since. I probably could count them on my one hand, actually. But that year in 1984, John Stockton was playing, and he came from a little school called Gonzaga that we hadn't even heard of.
That's right.
We kind of put them on the map, and now they're a national powerhouse.
Number one.
But, I literally remember standing on the court after a game, and my good friend was asking John, where is Gonzaga located? Because we didn't know.
Right.
Washington State, super nice guy. He's actually come back to the tournament. His son played there a few years back, and he spoke to our celebrity luncheon, and it's been a great relationship with him. And so that's one that stood out to me. I also got to see Scottie Pippen play at the tournament out of Central Arkansas. And I remember that was a big buzz on him. Jerry Krause was there scouting from the Bulls and eventually locked him up in the draft. And a lot of buzz on Pippen because he played himself into a lottery pick. And that's very rare. Usually the PIT players are more of your second round or free agent type individuals that are considered sleepers or diamonds in the rough. But Pippen actually, he shined. And Dennis Rodman also played in that.
Yes.
Dennis was a little bit different variation of himself when he played in Portsmouth. He didn't have all the tattoos, the colored hair.
Yes.
But a great player, a little bit older than your average senior.
Okay.
College at that time because he got a little bit of a late start.
Okay.
But he really worked off the crowd and was a very good scorer. I know in the NBA he was renowned as a defensive player and a rebounder.
Yes.
But in the PIT, he was actually a great scorer too. Okay. Yeah, just amazing players in that era. And then if you jump forward a decade or so, some of the more recent ones that have come through, we've seen Jimmy Butler.
Yes.
Excellent, in the NBA, had a great career. Jeremy Lin from the Linsanity time frame.
Yes.
He was out of Harvard. And it's an endless list. Now, I mean, you mentioned Rick Barry. That was before my time. But I've seen Rick come through and be a scout, post his appearance as a player back in the early 70s. And the PIT has actually been going on so long that we've seen a generational type of relationship with a lot of people. One of Rick Barry's sons has been back as an NBA scout, and his youngest son actually played in the PIT. That was John Stockton's son, David, a few years back. He played in the PIT also. So really, I'm showing my age because I've been able to see both a father and his son eventually both play in the tournament.
Sports is a uniter of people. It unites people. And although like I said, I grew up in historic Truxton, and there is the elephant in the room. Of course, Portsmouth is what it is, and it is very divided. There are a lot of neighborhoods that are very divided. But when it comes to sports, Portsmouth is like this when it comes to sports. And that's something that I have always loved about Portsmouth. That being said, the mission of the PIT, I did not totally understand the mission until recently. So tell me a little bit about your missions and the scholarships that you do.
Well, the PIT is a nonprofit. It's been going on since 1953, but it really started out more as a over 18 adult tournament, just local. And I think it got kind of competitive for the stories that I've heard through the years. And some of the teams started recruiting some college players to come in and play and to help bolster their roster. And then in the early 70s, word kind of got out with Bob Ferry, who was Danny Ferry's dad and an NBA scout. And he came down to scout some of the players that were actually playing on some of the teams. And it really blew up from there. But since we've gone to a pre-draft type NBA status and have the NBA support, we've always done, since that time frame, scholarships for local high school athletes. Now we normally do 7 $4,000 scholarships for each of the Portsmouth high schools, and one from like Norfolk, Suffolk, and Chesapeake as well. Virginia Beach too. So it's a total of 7. And then pretty much annually, at least $11,500 goes to local charities like the Her Shelter, some of the local sports clubs. In the Leukemia Society, we've had a volunteer through the tournament through the years, Susan Reed, who's our photographer. We've given money to her foundation as well. But local charities, Edmark Hospice, great charities in the local area get benefits from the PIT. The PIT really is not a profit run entity at all. It's made up by a army of volunteers, like you said. And in fact, let me read a quick quote
Sure.
that Chris Ekstrand, one of the NBA draft editors from their draft guide, and one of their consultants said whenever he was kind of memorializing our late great chairman Malin Parker, who passed away in 2020. Malin had been part of the tournament from the inception, actually. So
yes,
but we're definitely moving on after a 2-year hiatus from the pandemic in his spirit, and look forward to getting back into business this year. But Chris kind of summed up the PIT like this. He said, the PIT is a nonprofit entity run by an army of committed volunteers with a spirit that harkens back to another era in our nation's history. And I'll add to that a quote from a recent book that's been published. And I think, Natalie, we're supposed to be sending you one for your next interview with Mike Morris, but here's a copy of the book.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's something Yale Dulce, one of our other longtime late great board members, had always pushed for, to have kind of a written history of the tournament. But John Stockton, just to add on to what Chris Ekstrand said, whenever he recalled his playing days and his affiliation with the tournament, he said the PIT is an opportunity to play with great players in front of NBA scouts and European representatives. And here's the kicker: and you're in a community where everyone treats you like you're their own child.
Yes.
So what sets the PIT apart from the normal professional combine, the NBA combine that was held in Chicago previously, and there's been other tournaments throughout the years, but the PIT has maintained. And I think that small town community feel where everybody comes together, like you're talking about, is what has set the PIT apart in a lot of the scouts' eyes, and why we continue to do well.
Now, on the clip that I saw that you sent me, you use local coaches for the teams. And I shed a tear because one of my former colleagues, co-workers, classmates, Tony Holloway, was one of the coaches in the clip. Is there a pool you pull from, or how do you select the coaches for the teams?
We have a committee member who's in charge of the coaches. Normally, it's a volunteer thing. They submit, not really a paper application, but they submit their names for consideration. And as people rotate on or off, we bring in some new blood. We actually had one coach, a longtime coach, pass away, unfortunately, within the last year unexpectedly. And we're actually bringing in Junior Burrow, who played for the University of Virginia and then played a number of years in the NBA, but he's now coaching at Norfolk Collegiate High School.
Okay.
He's going to be one of our new coaches from the local ranks this year. And then the last decade, or probably even more, they've even brought in, the NBA Players Association has brought in people who are interested after their professional playing career into getting into, and they've given them the opportunity to be assistant coaches on the team. So usually each team out of the 8 teams in the tournament have 3 coaches. 2 of them are local high school affiliated coaches, and 1 from either the NBA, or even the last few years we've had some WNBA representatives that have played as well, or coached as well. Marianne Finney, who played at Old Dominion University locally, she, in the last tournament that we played in 2019 before the pandemic, and boy, she was serious. I mean, they definitely take it serious, and she was fiery. She definitely wanted the most out of those players. So that's another thing about this tournament, and you kind of mentioned this, and I always try to bring up to people. You know, even in the Hampton Roads area, a lot of people have heard about the PIT, but not a lot of them have come. Right. And So they have a misconception sometimes about what it's about. They think maybe it's an all-star game, or yeah, I heard something about it. I'm not sure what it's all about. But the thing about the PIT that I always try to stress to people when I promote it is you're not going to see this close anywhere. These guys that have played at a D1 top level, we only have seniors. That's one thing that is about the PIT. We can't do underclassmen because of the eligibility, and we don't bring in any European players unless they played in the States collegiately and exhausted your ability for where they're not underclassmen. They don't have any years of eligibility.
Okay.
So, but the PIT, when I finally get people to actually come, they're amazed at how physical they are during the tournament. How it's not just a scoring all-star game type thing. It's playing hard. It's gritty. The officials let them bump and get away with a little bit to see how they will react in front of the scouts. And I mean, it is very physical, hard-nosed basketball. It's not just your typical all-star game.
Now, since you said WNBA and officiating, my next question is, I just read the article about the all-female officiating team at the state championship in Virginia, in Richmond. Have you ever had any female officials at the PIT?
We have not, but you know what? I'll go ahead and spill the beans here a little bit. We've always used collegiate officials in the past.
Okay.
This year, looks like we are going to have a deal with the NBA to be using G League officials.
Okay.
And I believe there are I know for a fact that we have talked about in meetings having to have some separate locker rooms because we expect some female officials.
Okay. Now, with that being said, will there ever be some type of tournament for female players in that the WNBA, I know they don't make what the NBA makes, but they are a direct part of the NBA. Will there ever be a tournament for female basketball players in this realm, you think?
That's a great question. I would love to see it. I've been, if you grew up in this area as you did, you grew up in a great women's basketball tradition.
Oh, yes.
Finney University. So something I would love to see, but unfortunately, I don't know if it will happen, but I look forward to it happening. I'd love to attend.
And if nothing else, if not the complete tournament, maybe you can have a game, one charity game or something of that nature, because I think women's basketball does need a little bit more light on it. The WNBA, they play really good basketball. Oh, my gosh. In South Carolina right now with Dawn Staley, they look amazing. And just
once in a while, we do get somebody who is actually from the Hampton Roads or the Portsmouth community, because we have a great amount of talent here in all sports and academics. But one name just came to my mind, Dorian Finney Smith, who played for Norcom High School and won a state championship with them.
Yes.
Went on to a good collegiate career and then played in the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament, got drafted by the Dallas Mavericks, has had a very good career, and just signed a pretty lucrative contract extension with the Mavericks.
Yes.
So sometimes you do see the homegrown kids grow up to do very well with steps throughout local high schools, colleges, and then into the pros.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to get an interview scheduled with him to talk about growing up in Portsmouth and, as you say, going through the ranks and actually making it in the NBA. Because I know in our area, the opportunities for various careers can be somewhat limited, and there is that we are a heavy sports community with football and basketball, baseball. Oh my gosh, the athletes that have actually come out of Hampton Roads, it would really blow the minds of the people across the country. It's like, what are we growing? What kind of water are we drinking? Because we have some really big stars that have come out of that area.
We're an area without a professional. We have professional like minor league teams here in some smaller Division I universities like Norfolk State, Hampton University, Old Dominion University, William and Mary's close by. But we have the Norfolk Tides, which is the AAA affiliate, formerly the Mets, now the Orioles. But for for a location without any really major league type teams, you're right. There's something in the water, like Pharrell Williams says during his thing.
Exactly. I tell people all the time, my daughter was inducted into the African American Sports Hall of Fame the same night Julius Erving was.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, who is that? And I'm like,
oh my God, now that's my favorite player growing up.
You see? And so when I tell people that he played in Virginia for the Virginia Squires, they're looking at me like, what? Yes. So, it is definitely something in the water, something in the atmosphere there. So now the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame building, is that open now? Is it up and running? What's going on with that?
I believe that is now the new visitor center, and that is where you can purchase tickets to the tournament if you want to buy in advance or buy a book of tickets for the entire tournament. Okay. Otherwise, tickets are available at the door each night. But unfortunately, the Hall of Fame moved out of that building and now have some displays in the town center area of Virginia Beach. But I miss the old Virginia Hall of Fame. I used to love to visit. And it's ironic that, again, I think you and I have met for the first time today, really face to face, but we've been at a lot of events at the same time because I remember when Julius Erving was inducted into the African American Hall of Fame, it was a thrill to have the opportunity to meet him. And
yes,
going back to the PIT and all the different, we talked about some of the players that have played there, but you really never know who's going to walk into that gymnasium as a scout or some other capacity for the NBA. And one of my thrills was one time I was sitting at an afternoon game, and my buddy had asked me if there was somebody sitting up in the stands behind us, because the afternoon games are free and open to the public. You don't even need a ticket to come to those.
Okay.
And a lot more laid back. And I looked back to see who he was talking about, and I realized that Julius Erving was sitting one row behind me with a hat on. Oh my God, that's Dr. J right behind us.
Yes.
He was so nice. He took the time after the game to talk to us for a minute, sign a couple autographs, and just amazing to have the opportunity to meet him in that kind of atmosphere. And one other thing, I'm in charge, every volunteer does some different things.
Yes.
I'm in charge of the ball kids. I'm in charge of ticket sales and setup for the celebrity luncheon. I do some announcing along with somebody else who had a relationship with Dr. J and the Virginia Squires. He's the legendary voice of sports in Hampton Roads, Mr. Jack Ankerson. He's been kind of my mentor, and he's also on the board of directors with me. But Jack used to be the general manager of the Virginia Squires back when he played. So he's got a long-standing relationship in sports in Hampton Roads as well. But one thing I always try to tell my ball kids is something my old high school coach used to tell me. It didn't help me a whole lot because I never played much beyond high school.
Okay.
But the ball kids, I always tell them, this is a grand opportunity whenever you're this close to the players to interact with them. Mm-hmm. But during the game, I know you're going to watch, and it's amazing how some of these guys, they are so big in person, so strong, so fast. But when you're this close to them, don't just watch how they can dunk. Don't just watch the three-point shot. That's all good and makes the highlights. But something my coach told me, and I try to tell them if they want to play basketball, and I'm sure you can relate with your daughter playing for so long, is watch the little things these players do. These players have all played 4 years, at least 4 years of college basketball, most of them at the Division I level.
Yes.
Watch how they move their feet. Watch how they move without the ball. Watch how they position themselves for a rebound. Watch how they square their body up to the basket when they take a shot. Little fundamentals that we don't really see or talk about much anymore. And I think if they really pay attention, it's so valuable.
And the work that the committee, that the PIT is doing in the community with the scholarships and the volunteer, the opportunity to work and meet people, it's just a blessing. And I'm just so appreciative of the opportunity to interview you, shed a little light on the PIT. I give each guest an opportunity to say whatever is on your heart, to say to the people that will hear this. It doesn't have to be PIT related, whatever is on your heart.
Well, thank you very much, Natalie. And, really, I want to echo something that you've already said. The tournament It is a local entity, but we invite everybody. People from across the world come to this every year. I do think that it's known better in basketball circles sometimes than it is even known to local residents until they actually come and experience it. But you're right, it's a uniter. You have people from all different ages, colors, walks of life, religions that come together to make this happen and put this tournament on. And I'll be honest, the feeling once you've come to a couple of the tournaments through the years, it's almost like a family reunion of volunteers that come together every year, and even the fans. You see some of the same faces, and you develop a relationship with them. And it's good to see everybody back. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to see people back after a 2-year break. And hopefully we can keep moving forward with the great basketball and the charitable endeavors. And I do think, like you said, it makes everybody better because it makes us better people to volunteer. Help out with it. So please, if you have any interest in basketball at all, college, professional, take a look at the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament. Go to the website, portsmouthinvitational.com. Again, tournament scheduled for April 13th through 16th. We would love to have you come. And if you're still too far away and can't come, look it up on the web because we do stream some of the games and have that availability if you wanted to watch it via the computer. So, Natalie, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. And I really appreciate the fact that you wanted to highlight your old hometown.
Yes.
There's kind of a hidden gem there. And
yes. One question I forgot to ask you that just came up in my mind. If there is a kid that wants to volunteer to be a ball person, how would they do that?
Again, go to the PIT website. If you shoot an email, there's a contact link there. You shoot an email, Cliff Sales, who's one of our board of director members, he kind of minds the different emails out to who they need to go to, what committees. And I'm actually in charge of the ball kids. Normally, you got to be between about the ages of 7 and 13. And again, great opportunity to interact with the players. We usually carry about 20 to 25 kids, and I try to give every child the opportunity to do at least a set of night games, and if they're available, maybe one of the 3 afternoon games as well. So just like the players, every player gets to play at least 3 games in front of the scouts, and I try to give every ball kid the opportunity to do 3 games in the tournament as well.
I remember when they built the Renaissance and they built the booths bigger for the NBA players. I was like, why are these booths so big? The influence that the tournament has on the city, you know?
Well, and even Churchland High School, when they built that, when we moved from the old Wilson High School to Churchland, the Churchland High School was bigger than, you know, it is still a high school gymnasium, but it's a lot bigger than your average high school gymnasium. And that was done for the PIT and for the old Eastern Region tournament that they used to hold there for the high schools too.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, but the Spirit took us somewhere else. In that was Churchland built too with the PIT in mind?
Well, and one thing I will throw in, and you may want to edit this in too. You know, right before the pandemic hit, we were really excited. We're still excited, but unfortunately, we kind of missed the window. NBA 2K20, the video game, which is so popular with a lot of kids. Right. They actually, on the 2K20 game, inserted a special level that incorporates the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament. You're able to build your own player, run them through the draft process, and they even came out and scanned Churchland High School Gymnasium and the floor so it matches identical. So if you have some watchers, listeners that are interested, go into that NBA 2K20 game on PS, you know, the PlayStation or the Xbox, and there is a special module within that game that allows you to participate in the PIT, which is really cool.
Oh, Mr. Boyd, this has just been a delight in my day. I'm so glad you had an opportunity to spend time with Sports Chat with Nat to talk to the world about the PIT, which is one of the hidden gems in this country. It is just a phenomenal vehicle for sports and athletics and humanity in itself. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time out of your day off to spend with me. And if you haven't already, please subscribe on Sports Chat with Nat on YouTube. And now we're on Facebook, ladies and gentlemen. Look, Mike Board, thank you, thank you, thank you. The PIT, ladies and gentlemen, is April the 13th through the 16th, correct? Am I right? At Portsmouth, in Portsmouth at the CHURCHLAND High School on Cedar Lane, ladies and gentlemen. Portsmouth Invitational Tournament, the 68th annual PIT tournament. Listen, you don't want to miss it. Thank you so much. Have a great day.